Thank you, and welcome to Christen Commentary. Okay. Is there anything that we need to re-record? Are you happy with everything?
I mean, I definitely said a lot. I feel like I should have
I
like
did too.
written,
Stevie, if you go through, like, there's like clever ways to cut it in a way.
yeah,
Oh, there was
like,
one question I was supposed to ask you that I didn't get to, and I don't know.
mm,
Stevie, you can decide if you want to include this, but there is this trend in recent years. It's not a secret, right, where church attendance has gone down, and there's a lot
hmm
of theories about why that is. But what is your sane hot take on why that is?
I think it's a confluence of things, to be honest. Um, I find myself in the Presbyterian Church USA, which is a mainline Protestant denomination. The last time that we had more people join per year than leave, so to speak, was in the 1960s,
Mm,
which is sort of a bit of a not great statistic because my denomination
mm,
didn't even officially exist until the 1980s. So when the Northern and Southern Presbyterian
that's
churches
right.
that separated for the Civil War merged again,
Yes. Oh my
um,
God.
so this has been going on for a while in our denomination,
Yeah.
but it's true pretty much across the board, even in Southern Baptist denomination
Oh yeah.
churches, evangelical. I
Yeah,
no
Catholics, we're
less.
all, yeah, we're
Yeah.
all we're all noticing that. And I have very specific reasons for why I think it happens in the Catholic Church, and I think that it has mostly to do with the scandals.
Yeah.
And
I
people are very hurt by that.
I will also say a pretty large percentage of the new Presbyterians that I have had since I have been ordained, not people who like moved from a different area, so they joined,
Yeah.
one of the local Presbyterian churches, have been former Catholics.
I love
And
that.
and by and large, one of the reasons they say for why they cannot go back to a Catholic church has
Hmm.
to do with the scandals.
Yeah.
Also the guilt.
That too. The guilt
So-
and yeah, like as a gay Catholic, I have very
right.
complicated relationship with my faith. Like my relation to it now has evolved where I've done a lot of research on like because I'm Sicilian, like a lot of Sicilian folk cultures. And what you learn when you go back and you look at all these older ways that these more localized populations engaged with the church, it was not this like standardized conformist kind of a thing. Like these
Mm,
local populations had their own traditions and their own ways to do things. And I've really leaned into the Southern Italian folk Catholic traditions, and
oh,
I'm
I
very
like that.
happy there. I'm very happy in that
Mm,
space. And I found a community, like a local community of other Italian women, mostly older than me, mostly in their 50s and 60s or older. Who have really like kind of latched on to this kind of a thing. So I'm very happy with where I am now. I don't know if I could give up the production value, the smells and the bells.
mm,
But I will say that if I ever became a Protestant, you're the first
mm.
to hear this, it would be Presbyterian.
Hey.
The reason that I love the Presbyterians so much is actually, this is so random. There was this Canadian miniseries. It was like a spin-off of Anne of Green Gables. It was called Road to Avonlea, and it was written by Canadian, like liberal progressive Presbyterians, and they wove
hmm
Presbyterianism into the way that they wrote the show and the ethics of the show and the things. And I thought it
Mm.
was so beautiful and so delightful. Where I was like, if I ever became a Protestant,
I think a lot of people feel that way also because of Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, yeah, he was a Presbyterian.
He
He's
was a
such a good example. Yeah,
he wasn't just Presbyterian, he was a Presbyterian minister.
that's
He
right.
was
That's right.
ordained to his validated ministry is our official term. His TV show was his validated ministry.
I love that
Um,
for
so
him.
he was
Stevie, we
ordained to
have to
do that.
include this part. That blows my mind. That just, I,
Yeah.
I love that so much. So we
Um,
consider that like most of American children. were raised by this Presbyterian minister, and that a lot of our own ethical grounding and our
Hmm.
own sense of self-worth, because he did give us that,
Yep.
came from this liberal Presbyterian minister.
Yeah,
So,
it's so kind of funny. Obviously in Presbyterian circles, we quote Mr. Rogers all the time, like,
yeah.
well, according to the Reverend Fred Rogers, that kind of thing. And then when I spend time in more secular spaces, people also quote Mr. Rogers all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like these comforting things that he said that for us in Presbyterians is so grounded in our theology and our understanding of the world of God's sort of innate goodness, of the
Hmm.
goodness that each of us has within us, but the ways in which we also struggle with doing things that are wrong. I don't know. It's so innate to who we are that it's always, I get a
Yeah.
little like warm, fuzzy feeling when I see
I really
people
do.
quoting Mr. Rogers.
It's
So,
so wonderful. And yeah, and I think one thing I really appreciate about Presbyterianism is the way that it talks about the impact of circumstance on people's behavior.
mhm.
That because we were, in this situation that we are in our life, whatever that might be, that our lived experiences, shape who we are and shape, our ethics and our
Yeah,
morality and everything else. And I
for
think that
sure.
it's very sophisticated in that way. Best conversation we've ever had about our two
Yeah.
faiths.
Oh, but yeah, in answer to your question with declining church attendance, I
Yeah.
really think it's so many different things, changes to our society. But I do know there was a major drop off during COVID, which I think
Yeah.
doesn't really surprise anyone. So many churches were closed during that time. My church didn't worship in person for over a year and a half. A lot of people simply didn't come back. Um,
Yeah.
and and that's the reality that I think a lot of churches have to deal with. We also we do worship on, well, now we do it hybrid, but we had done worship on Zoom, and we still have a sort of Zoom group of people who
Yeah.
now live elsewhere because they moved during that period, or people who have health concerns and really can't come to church. So probably about a third of our congregation every Sunday is on Zoom,
That's
and
awesome though,
they
that
have a
technology can do
lovely.
that.
Right. And they have a
Yeah.
lovely community. They log on to Zoom a half hour before worship starts. There's a retired minister who kind of leads their little group. And
Oh,
they
that's
have a
wonderful.
wonderful community. But I think it's just a changing reality for what church means.
Yeah, and it used to
Yeah.
be, the center of everybody's social lives, and
Hmm.
it was like the pillar of the community. And that's one thing that I
Yeah.
really miss about because I don't always feel comfortable going into the Catholic spaces, but I really do miss that old sense of community and whatnot. But now a lot of people are actually feeling like like there's like this kind of loneliness epidemic, and there's these
Hmm.
conversations about whether or not church, like going back to church, could fill these gaps. But there's also so much baggage that people associate with it. So it's kind
Yeah.
of a catch-22.
And I do think even for, a more inclusive denomination like the Presbyterian Church USA, where we perform same-sex weddings, we ordain
Yeah,
LGBTQ plus folks. We recently updated our Book of Order. So our official welcome statement is that we welcome people of regardless of, and we already had something that was like,
yeah,
race, national background, but now it says like all genders and all sexualities. That's something that I'm really proud of. But at the same time, the reality is so many people who are LGBTQIA plus, who
hmm,
are from some of these other groups that have really been wronged by the church, have
yeah,
such real trauma and
yeah,
hurt
yeah.
that even if I say like, well, my church is welcoming, I can totally understand why they just don't feel like religion is a safe and healthy place for them.
I feel that I really do. I really do because I am still processing a lot of my own.
Yeah.
And it's such a long-term process, but it's a journey that I'm on, and I have my Jesus is a liberator of the oppressed shirt on.
Hey.
And one thing that I've done recently in recent years, because it is taking years, is I've said I'm going to read the entire Bible. The entire thing. So I have the entire thing on audiobook, and it's like 52 hours. And I've only gotten as far as like Deuteronomy. I'm at the part now
Oh,
where Aaron's like, and this person's gonna wear this color, and this person's gonna wear this, and you need this material. And I'm like, oh my God, Aaron was just a frustrated theater kid with very specific directions about every how everything needs to be done. But one thing I love about like going through is that I start identifying with these people in the Bible more than I ever
yeah.
have. Like my favorite story now, especially because I'm a manager at work, is the part where Moses has to problem solve like everybody's conflicts and people line up outside of his tent and he's in there all day and like help, making
Hmm.
sure that everybody solves their problems. And then his father-in-law Jethro shows up and is like, "This is not an efficient way to
Yeah,
do this.
this
You need to
isn't
write down
working.
some rules."
Yeah.
And so then you go then of course Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it's all the rules and you're like listening to these rules and for every rule you're like, "Oh, that means somebody came to him with this."
Hmm. Yeah, with that
Probably more
question.
than once.
Hmm.
So you're going through and you're like, who was that person? Who
Yeah.
and why? And and there's a story behind every single one of these rules. So like when people cite Leviticus to me about, man shall not lie with man and all, like the anti-gay passages, I'm like, okay, but there was probably some gay tea that happened there that was probably a big cause of drama in the camp. And you have to think like,
Oh,
why did Moses put that in there to
I
begin with?
I like that as a hypothesis. I really like that. One thing in general I just love about the Bible, obviously it's a sacred text, but it's so human. So many of the stories are just so achingly human. When you get to the New Testament, Peter is just like he's a mess in so many ways. He has this like word vomit problem
He
where it's
really
like what
does.
he's thinking comes out his mouth. For every like huge declaration he makes, for everything
Hmm.
huge that he does that he then messes up. I mean, he is just
He's a hot
so,
mess, and
yeah,
Jesus
he
loves him anyway.
it doesn't just love him, but like says that
Puts
he's
him
the
in
rock in
charge.
which he'd build the
Yeah.
church. So
Yeah.
this is if you hold with what the Roman Catholic Church says is true, that Peter's
Yeah.
the first pope,
He's the Pope.
this is amazing.
Yeah, he
I
got the
just
messiest one. And he put
hmm
him in charge of the whole thing. And it's so funny because of how many times Jesus is there and he keeps saying to them, "You're not understanding what I'm saying.
yeah.
You're not getting it. You're wrong. You're not getting it. You're not getting it." And as a teacher, I identify very strongly with Jesus in this moment because I was like,
That's
you
so
see what
true.
he's doing. You see that he's teaching them to
Hmm.
be able to do this without him, right?
Yep.
He knows he's going to leave and he's like, no, 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 you're not getting it. You're not getting it. You're not getting it. But he gives it to them anyway and he
Mm.
trusts them. He's like, okay, you guys are not going to get this, but here you go. Here's what I'm saying. Go and tell other people now. And I think that that's very, very interesting. I'm also gonna say that I love the Gospel of Mark. I think it's my favorite
Mm.
gospel because of it's written in like pure irony. And I
Oh yeah.
love irony. Like everything about it is Jesus being like, this is not gonna go the way that you think it will.
Hmm.
This everything you know is wrong. And, and he just takes everything and he flips it. And I think irony is in a lot of ways the language of the marginalized. And the Gospel of
Mm.
Mark is such a testament to how this figure of Christ really belongs to the most marginalized. Because again, that's where we
Yeah.
get the last
Yeah.
shall be first and the first shall be last. It's so many reversals. And he says, like, the
Hmm.
kingdom of heaven, think of it as like the opposite of this world. It's kind of like the upside
Hmm.
down, where it's like what you give is what you get, and what you have is what gets taken away from you. So it's such a
Yeah.
beautiful thing that has made me really reconnect with the teachings of Christ in a new way, beyond whatever religious trauma I'm working through. And it's been a great comfort to me in these
Yeah.
last couple years. So, if anybody out there is still struggling with spirituality and struggling with these things, and especially my LGBTQ siblings who have been burned by Christianity in particular, when you are ready, if ever you are ready, give those stories a reread through this new lens, and you're going to find some real gems in there.
Yeah. And I mean, the Gospel of Mark is also pretty short. It's only about
I
11,000
love it's
words.
my favorite part about it. I'm like it's
Yeah.
short, it's ironic, it's sassy.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when people read scripture, they get very bogged down on the verses, the individual words, that kind of thing, particularly people from certain types of backgrounds, that's how they read scripture.
Yeah.
But if you just sit down, let's say the Gospel of Mark, and just read it like it's a
Yeah. Like a
story.
story.
Um, it really won't take you very long. Like I said,
It really won't.
it's
You
very
finish it in like an
short.
hour. Like it's very
Yeah.
short. And yeah, like the like I think that a lot of people are so used to pulling passages. And
Hmm.
I'm like, no, no, no. Read the whole this is again, teacher, theater PhD historian Christen being like, no, read the whole thing. Read the whole thing, get the whole story, get the beginning,
Yeah.
middle, and end, and then you'll see what the big picture is. Oh my God, it's just such a wonderful pastime. My brother, who's an atheist, loves reading the Bible,
That's so weird, but
because
I love it.
I know he's brilliant. He's we listen to a lot of Bible podcasts and stuff like that, and we really love getting into the whole the literature, the history, the philosophy
Mm,
of it all, and
yeah.
it's so fun to chew on. So I feel like we could have a whole miniature episode just from this
I
conversation,
was
but
actually like, I was like, man, we should have like an outtakes episode or something.
I think that we could probably make like a little 15-minute mini episode out of this. We can get some content out of this. We'll make sure that this gets seen, because it's such a
Uh,
meaty conversation, and
it
I think it's a
is.
useful
It
one.
is. No, I'm really glad that we got to do this. So,
Absolutely. So I'm gonna let you go, and you have an awesome day. And thank you, Stevie, for getting this far in the video.